a lot of times on the actual full moon, your work that you have been doing will come to fruition naturally. So, the other aspect, and for myself, the bigger aspect of the full moon is there's really a light on shadow. So, if you go out under a new moon and you try to see your shadow on the sidewalk, you're not going to see it because no shadow is exposed when things are completely dark. So, upon the dark of the moon and the new moon, 1% light or waxing moon, this is the best time to be planting seeds. So, another reason, so if you are not aligned with the moon, like a lot of witches don't pay attention to the moon phase, they'll pay attention to days of the week. So, every day of the week carries a different energy. And depending on how you experience the planet that rules that day of the week could either help or, take away from your spell work, depending on how influenced you are by the days of the week and the planets that are ruling those days. So on Sunday, the planet ruling Sunday is the sun. On Monday, so on Sunday, for myself, for example, things that make us shine are what we should be doing on Sunday. On Monday, when everybody's going back to work, that's the day that the moon holds her reign. So we're actually picking up energy on like planet Earth. People go back to work and everybody's like, I don't feel like going back to work on Monday. That's because you're supposed to be intuitively listening to your body, working with your intuition, not picking things up and going back to work. So slowing things down would be what you should be doing on Monday. Now, Tuesday, Mars rules Tuesday. So if we were going to start our week on any day, I would start my week on Tuesday because that's when Mars, the masculine energy that gets things going, is ruling that day. So that's a great day to start your spell work. But also Monday can be a great day for starting spell work because intuitively you're tuning in to what you actually need to be doing or not. Wednesday, Mercury rules Wednesday, but also if a dwarf planet could rule Wednesday, that would be Chiron. So simultaneously, the wound of Chiron will come up on Wednesday while we're working with communication, the planet of communication. Thursday is Jupiter, so it expands things. Hi, Gypsy. Hi, Connie. And Friday is ruled by the planet Venus. So Friday is very feminine, very sensual, and Saturday is ruled by Saturn. So you can use those in your spell work as well. Now, another way to look at spell work and why you could be like, I'm just not feeling it. What should I do? If you're not feeling it, don't do it, because I feel like that is the gift of the feminine. She needs to be feeling safe in her environment, safe in her life, or their life, I should say, safe in their life to express that feminine essence. Now, if you are a woman and you have a womb in your body, the womb has an oracle energy all on its own that is quite different from someone that has a lingam, we'll say. And the energy of the lingam is actually an energy of the seed, right? But of fertilization, I should say, not the seed, of fertilization. The energy of the womb is the energy of an oracle within itself. So a lot of us put a lot of focus on the third eye. But if you are a female, if you have a womb, or at one point in your life you had a womb, your body's an actual portal. And your womb is a portal of creation, but also a portal is access to the divine, to the other realms. So we look at our altar as witches as being a portal. You're creating a space of honor, a portal where you're giving offerings to be able to communicate with spirits on the other side or deities on the other side. The feminine body is an actual portal. So if you are not feeling the energy of, I can't stop looking at my hat where it's all like crinkled right there. If you have a womb or you're very, very feminine, you may not be feeling like doing something because now may not be the right time. And why would now not be the right time? It could be astrological reasons, moon reasons, days of the week reasons. It could be life reasons. So a lot of us see spells being done on TikTok or Instagram or wherever, and we think, oh, I want more money. And so I see this person doing this money spell. I'm just going to do a money spell. When actually there are a lot of steps, and I don't mean to overcomplicate the craft because the craft is very simple when you eat, breathe, and sleep the craft. The problem with being a witch in the broom closet is that unless you're staying home a lot and not putting yourself around a lot of other people, you're probably absorbing a lot. I mean, all of us absorb energy from our environment, right? It is the natural human state. Although we like to glamorize, like, oh, this person's an empath, or, you know, and we all humans, all of us are empaths. And so we are all constantly absorbing energy from our auric field. So one reason you may not feel like doing spell work could be because there is so much energy clouding your auric field, even if it hasn't permeated your body. And we're living in, especially if you're in the US or different areas around the world, are experiencing a lot of political upheaval and political collective unrest. And that particular energy of unrest around you, even if your physical body is really like protected and nothing's coming into the physical, you're still absorbing that energy in your auric field. And so you're going to have this energetic debris around you. And that energetic debris will influence your spell work. So the reason your body may be saying like, no, I just can't do this right now, is because that spell may not turn out exactly like you want it to, because when you're doing spell work, you're always weaving magic, and you're weaving magic with the elements, but also with what's in your energetic field. So if your energetic field has collected a lot of energetic dirt, your spell may not turn out exactly like you want, because those energies are influencing that actual spell. Unless you have a really good way in your practice of spell work of clearing your energy and casting a circle. And that's the thing. A lot of people on this app specifically are not casting a circle. Now, if you're on my lives a lot, you've probably seen me cast a circle. Maybe we will cast a circle today. I feel like maybe we might need that as a collective. Let me know in the comments if you feel like we need that today. My casting of a circle is very channeled, very meditative. It takes usually around 15 minutes. That being said, you don't have to go into a full-blown, like, the way I do it. You can call upon each element, you can invoke each element, and cast your circle very quickly. But you also, to cast a circle and actually have it work, you need to have a relationship or have built an energetic flow with each of the elements. Now, most of us are so wounded and have done so very little shadow work that most of us aren't in tune with all of those elements that we carry within our body. So most of us are disembodied to some extent. Hi, Blood Moon Witch. Let me look at some of these comments. Hi, Pamela, Grayson, Max Joy, Tofu friend. Okay, I will cast a circle in just a bit. Good morning, Gingy. Aaron. I will always remember you are Aaron now, Gingy, because I have a cat I call Gingy too. And Chal 1981, blessed be. So the daily practice of somebody like myself is very different than most people. Most people's mundane life rules their life, and their spiritual world is secondary. Now, I mean, you can look at it like my main job is my work on my website, my classes I'm teaching, and my work as a influencer on social media. So my life centers around the craft, but also I didn't get to where I am to be able to share the work that I share, the wisdom that I share, if I didn't prioritize my own self-care. Now, that's not to say that any one of us are 100% healed. Like, I have been working on my healing for years. It's layered. It's so layered. And you guys, like, of course, like, you do work and then you like give yourself a break, and it's like, wow, I've reached this state where I feel really good. And so you'll go about your life, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, recently I was I'm watching this show, and it's actually a lot of the actual stuff in the show is things that have happened. How do I put this without going into a long dissertation about my own life? Things that have very similar things have happened to me that have happened to the women in this show I'm watching. So this show is on Stars. It's called Three Women. And so this show, watching it from the perspective of these three women. Now, my experiences aren't exactly the same as theirs, but very similar. A lot of my wounding themes in these three women's lives really reflect in my life. And so I've really been, by watching this show, bringing back layers of healing that need to happen. And what's interesting is my husband said to me last night, like, I thought you've done this work, like this is coming up again, because I asked him to turn the show off so I could talk to him about a few things. And I was having to explain to him that when you have trauma, and we all have trauma in our life, it's not like you go to therapy for a year and you're done and then it's gone. Every healing requires us to go on this journey of removing layers of energetic debris within our physical body, but also, you know, talk therapy or therapy with a coach of some sort is really helpful, or for someone that can hold space for you. Like, you know, last night I was telling my husband, like, I need to say this out loud. I know it has nothing to do with you, but I know he can create that space, safe space for me to share things about my past. And by talking these things out loud, what happens in your brain is that your brain takes something that has been filed. If your brain had file cabinets, that's the way I look at my brain, and it has something over here in this file that's close to the front where it needs to be addressed, but it's pushed to the back. And then there's things in this file that are like pushed way back, way far. And then there is a file where it's like resolved. And so when you talk about things, your brain can take that file from either being shoved way in the back and bring it closer to the front, or it can take it from being in the front and put it in the resolved file. Now, that doesn't mean it's resolved. Again, like, another layer isn't going to come up, but what is most affecting you in your everyday life can be filed in a different file in your brain, so that you won't become disassociated every time trigger around a certain thing happens. And so talk therapy can be really, really good. But the reason why it's great to use a therapist for this and not your friends is because you need someone that can create a safe space where you're not trying so hard to be understood by their projections of your relationship, if that makes sense. So if you're sharing with your mom and your mom is taking everything as being a reflection of her, or she can't separate herself from you, then sharing with your mom might not be a great idea. Same thing goes with your partner. You know, you might be sharing something from your past with your partner, but if they're thinking of in terms of today, they're running everything through a filter or lens of how is this affecting our relationship today. So it's really good to have a coach, a healer, or therapist, and then to have some sort of way to move your physical body. Thank you, Rebecca, for being such an amazing moderator. I see you're helping in the comments. I super, super appreciate that. And blessed be to all my coven sisters that are helping on. So healing is very layered because not only do we have the files in our brain, but we have the energetic debris that's stored in our body. So we all have those moments in life where we're kind of like, you feel the ick, right, from something. And sometimes you're like, I don't know why I'm feeling this. And a lot of times that can be because it's triggering something that's been held in your body. Triggers are actually so different than what we perceive them to be. A lot of times we are being triggered and we're not even consciously aware we're triggered, and we're just allowing that trigger to run the show. We all have a lot of triggers. Now, the energy we are moving into right now for the next 2 years is that of the North Node in astrology being in Neptune. And Neptune will go in Pisces and then into Aries, and Pisces and Aries, and it's like going to bounce back and forth for a while, off and on. But the energy of the North Node in Pisces, that means that this is an uncomfortable place for humanity, but this will be a time over the next 2 years that you have an opportunity to go into that place. Like Neptune energy takes us so many places. Like, we're going to be looking, I believe, at a lot of our triggers and our old traumas, because Neptune can cause us, if we have a lot of those, to have different things happen, like addiction, delusion, illusion. Thank you, Be More Witch. I appreciate your support there. I'm seeing your comment that you agree. I didn't even realize you were a therapist. If I were to go back to school for something, that would be what I would go back to school for, to have some formal education, because I've only done study on this myself and also worked through therapy for the last 10 years. So yeah, and myself healing is what I speak from a lot as well. So I appreciate that. So the energy that we're moving into with the North Node in Neptune is that energy of our spirituality and our relationship with Source or Creator is going to be pushed into a different realm, or we're going to, I should say, flow into a different realm, depending on if Neptune is in Pisces or if it's in Aries. Now, Aries is going to be more of that push energy, more of that energy like full steam ahead, where when Neptune is in Pisces, we're going to feel very emotional, very empathic, very sensitive. And so I believe this energy of the North Node, although it's going to feel uncomfortable for many, it's going to heighten a lot a lot of people out there that are what I would call some sort of light warrior, spiritual warrior that was born at this time with a mission to be the change and help be a guide to the collective. And a guide to the collective, meaning I'm not telling you exactly how to live your life like a church, right? I am going to be almost like the finger of God type energy, they would call it, or I would call it the finger of goddess, where it's like I'm guiding the way. And that's what I attempt to do with my work in the world. Is I'm not going to make you lean on me like a religion does, like you need me to be the best witch you can do. My role is to point you in the direction for you to find your own way. Now, in shadow, Pisces or Neptune Pisces energy can be very codependent. However, in light, Pisces is very connected to source and completely dream a new world into being. And a lot of times we don't give our actual dream, our ability to dream, I should say, enough credit. A lot of times we think this is just a dream, a daydream, something I wish could happen, and that keeps it like out here from us, right? But the gift of Neptune and in Pisces and Neptune in Aries is that it can take us deep, connect us to that channel, connects us to both the higher realms, but also being able to embody the wisdom of those higher realms. And for centuries now, we have been in a patriarchal structure. We have been where religion actually has ruled our planet. And as long as we have religion and patriarchal structures, we are going to keep seeing this codependent narrative play out again and again. Now, codependent takes the power away from the people. Sovereign is you having knowing you have the power within you to create the world you want to create. And how do we do that? We take our actual healing into our own hands. We take our connection with source and responsibility for our soul's, what should I call that? Our soul's evolution. We take that in responsibility upon ourselves. We do not put it on anything outside of ourselves, like you need to follow this person to save your soul, or you need to give your life over to Jesus. Like, at my opinion on Jesus and Yeshua, completely night and day from the patriarchal narrative that the church has placed upon humanity for a very, very long time. So a lot is going to be changing for humanity over the next 2 years as far as how we see source, how we feel source, creator, whatever you call it, and also how we work with our empathic nature as humans. Our empathic nature is not meant to disempower us, but a lot of times, because we've repeated this narrative that has been played out in the collective, like, I'm an empath, like I had that title placed upon me. Now, I'm a Pisces moon. I have a lot of strong Pisces in my chart and a lot of strong Neptune. Thank you, Gingy. And that energy, you know, it lends to me being extra empathic. I just have a lot of water in my chart, right? So when I first started working with mentors and healers, they were always, you're so empathic. You know, anyone that knows me is like, oh, you're such an empath. You're such an empath. I really honestly don't like that title, just because it has been such a codependent narrative that has come along with it in the spiritual community for so long. Almost like I'm a victim because I am so empathic. No. Our empathic gifts are what are actually bringing us to the forefront for humanity right now, because if we can't feel how fucked up our planet has become as a whole, then we will never change anything. So the more we push down the feelings, the more what we are experiencing in our reality is projection of the triggers. We're living as a collective from the triggers. So in Pisces, actual highest expression of the light, they actually can be very protected. What does the water sit upon? It sits upon sand, it sits upon earth. So the water can actually be very solid and very still, but actually the water can be very fluid and very stormy like, right? And when you look at that in your life, humanity needs to learn to be okay with the fact that life isn't always going to be bliss. That is the feminine way. Some days we are going to feel moody and emotional and sensitive. And other days we're going to feel solid and we're going to feel like full steam ahead. And what we need to accept is that all humans are empathic to some degree. And that's why I believe Neptune is coming in the North Node at this time, is because the only way humanity can change is if we all get pushed to the edge with our own shit coming up and looking at it. Oh, Margie, thank you for being here, beautiful sister. I seen you pop on a little bit ago and I was like, oh my gosh, Margie's here, and then you were gone. And so right now there's just so much going haywire on our planet. And if we shove everything down and just trust what's put in front of us, things are going to keep going the way that they've gone for a very long time. So right now, we have many of us that are reincarnated at this time to be way showers, to be that finger of the goddess, pointing the way down the road that you might need to take to actually move yourself out of that patriarchal structure. If each of us on the planet started moving in that direction of sovereignty rather than codependency, the total narrative of the collective is going to radically change. Because when you are living from a place of sovereignty, you stop focusing so much on everybody outside of you being the problem, and you really live in this energy where you are taking responsibility for every single thing in your life. If everybody had that particular level of personal responsibility, the world would be a different place. Now, I'm here, I teach witch school, I hold retreats for witches, but you don't have to. I'm not here saying everyone has to be a witch. I have a radically different opinion on what the narrative is that is the most popular narrative. And right now I'm seeing a lot of all the witches weren't killed. It was women who were killed. It was healers that was killed. It was during the burning times I'm speaking of. It was midwives, and don't get me wrong, it was midwives, it was healers, and there was a direct threat on those that practiced those particular things that I just mentioned. But there were more Christians killed, just people who actually converted to Christian life killed during those, I need to look back at how many hundreds of years that they were killing people as witches. It might have been like a 600, 500 year span, maybe a 300 year span. I'm not sure on that exact number. I'm actually going to look that up. But precursor to the actual the mass hysteria where they killed witches was the oppression of women. And the reason the oppression of women was happening was because of the power a a woman actually holds, or the feminine energy actually holds. And I actually believe a lot of the men that were killed carried a strong feminine essence, or they were protecting their woman, right? I don't believe there were actual, I mean, I know there were witches that were killed, but I don't believe that there were that many actual practicing witches, if that makes sense. I believe it was mass hysteria that caused the people, it's almost like the people are the ones that burned the people. Now I know that they had court for it and everything, but the finger pointing from the mass hysteria is what gave the government the control that they had in every single place on the planet. Doesn't matter if you were in the US or if you were in Europe or Sweden or Iceland or France or where you were. These times, by people turning against one another, by people dividing, and the reason they divided was because of fear, and the fear caused mass hysteria. So by continuing the narrative where we're only talking about the fact that they persecuted, that they tortured and murdered these people that were healers and midwives, and then I'm not saying they didn't, go after them, they did. But I'm saying what we're missing while everyone's using that source of empowerment is the fact that back in the pagan times, I don't believe they actually called themselves pagans. It was just the way they lived. It became differentiated as pagan and the church when the church started trying to gain control of the population, if that makes sense. So it caused this mass hysteria and fear, and there's almost a level of that is happening on our planet right now, and we're actually seeing it happen in the US where I live really, really strongly. And it's people are dividing by their fear of what is to come. And it's like you give people a good villain to be against. They don't only turn against the villain, they turn against everyone else. And it's like what we need to be learning to do on this planet, not that the people structures of control completely need to change, but as people we need to stop dividing and turning against one another. We need to take responsibility for ourselves and live in our own sovereign reality or dimension. And I just believe a lot of times in spiritual communities, people get so like, we're moving to the 5D and blah, blah, blah. And like, I personally don't like that terminology because it's pushing people too far up and out during a time when we need to be coming down and in. We need to be fully embodied. And the reason we can't be fully embodied is because these bodies are so full of energetic trauma and debris. It's not even just our physical body, it's our energetic body as well. So I'm gonna say pagan means more than peasants. The pagan, I do believe there's a lot to be said about the word pagan, but the thing is right now we need to bring some of the ancient wisdom that we've actually abandoned or was abandoned because of the burning times back into the modern day, and we need to combine it with modern day wisdom to create a new way of being that actually empowers humans to create the reality they want to be. I actually sell these hats in my website. If you want one, go check out the link in my my bio. I have so many fun things on my website. Can you say what spirituality is? That's an interesting question. What defines spirituality? I think it is, I mean, I guess I would have to look that up in a dictionary to be actually positive on what that is, but the word spiritual can refer to anyone's beliefs of their origins, I believe. And that spirituality is the way that they live their life according to their soul, what they believe or where they believe their soul came from. I should look that up so I can have a better definition of that. But you know, the word spirituality can refer to Christianity. It can speak to, you know, Mormons call themselves very spiritual. And then there's like the New Age spiritual people. And then there is the spirituality that witches practice. I believe it's your relationship with your source and how you work with that energy in your everyday life, because some people are completely disconnected from their spirituality, which would mean completely disconnected from their spirit and from what their origins could possibly be. Now, you know, every person on the planet has a different idea of what that is, right? People that practice Christianity have one way of seeing the world. The interesting thing about Christians to me, and I was raised in a church that was considered Christian, you guys, and even though I was raised in a church that was considered Christian, I lived in a house where I would say we were witches hiding behind our Christian faith. Not doing it intentionally, but just because I believe we were bloodline witches, and so we just, you know, my mom's family, where my bloodline witch comes from, they actually didn't go to any church. My great grandma did watch church on TV, but they didn't, they weren't involved in a church. My dad's family was Mormon, and so the Mormons kind of sucked my parents in when my little sister was born and was sick. And a lot of religions will do that. That's how they get you when you're going through something traumatic. They make you codependent on them. Like, you need the Lord to survive. You need the Lord to keep going. And you know, what's interesting is I see this in my comments daily. I have to go on my comment feed, and I tell you, I am deleting more Christian hate from my comment section than hate from anyone else. And what's interesting is these people are so self-righteous that they can't comprehend that someone doesn't believe in the Bible. So they keep quoting biblical scripture to me and saying, like, aren't I afraid that the Lord will come and get me? And it's like, no, I'm not afraid of that. And you can keep putting all of the scripture you want to put in the comments section, and it doesn't mean a thing to me because I don't believe in the Bible. Now, witches for a long, long time have hid behind Christianity because it was be killed or be Christian. Literally, that is our history. So yes, Christianity has influenced the craft. But my goal as a witch is to eradicate the path of the witch from Christianity, because we no longer need that to survive. Now, I do realize the state of being on the planet and the way things are energetically could bring back the burning times for us in this modern day, but I don't believe they will. I believe that is why we are here on the planet right now. People like me, people like yourself, you wouldn't be watching this live if somewhere in you the message that I am sharing did not resonate with you. And you know, a lot of times, even when people are spewing hate in my comments, I won't delete them right away unless it's outrightly like there is some foul things people put in my comments, and I will block and delete them because I do have very strong boundaries for myself. But sometimes I will go back and forth with people because I feel like if they did not low-key have an obsession with the craft or draw to the craft, they wouldn't keep coming back and wasting their time on witch talk. So, you know, the reason why we don't need to just completely cut off people that are of different belief systems than we are is because we can actually learn from each other if we are open and willing to have a beginner's mind. And that's the place for myself I try to stay in, even as a teacher, a leader, a high priestess, whatever you want to call me, is that I try to stay in the space of a beginner's mind. I'm always willing to learn from other witches, even witches that have not been a witch in this life as long as I have been a witch. I have found that there are many witches that have had past lives as witches that are only awakening to that right now, and they do have a strong inherent wisdom. So we need to be open to seeing perspectives of other people. And I think the North Node in Neptune is going to help us see the world from that lens. And it's not to give people permission to be assholes, but it's to teach us that it is okay to have healthy boundaries. You know, Neptune, especially Pisces more than Neptune in general, but when Neptune is in Pisces, our our boundaries are challenged. We are being challenged to look at our boundaries, and a lot of us right now we have walls up rather than boundaries, and we don't know what healthy boundaries are. We either have zero boundaries or we have walls up around us that people cannot infiltrate. And if you keep a wall up around you, you will not do any good on this planet. The only reason, I just don't believe we need walls. I believe healthy boundaries are beautiful. And from this place of having healthy boundaries, and I've struggled with that. I believe anyone that was raised in a religion is going to struggle with what boundaries look like, because you, especially if you're a female, in religion, you were taught to have no boundaries. So if you were raised in a religion, it's likely that your perception of boundaries is going to be very misconstrued. And, you know, I still work with this myself, because sometimes I will give people, probably my Pisces moon, a little more how do I think I'm like, am I dyslexic the way I flip words around? A little more leeway than I actually should be giving them. And the thing is that I really want to offer people a chance. And, you know, right now specifically, I've given this person on social media, I blocked them from all my social medias. They followed me onto my website and actually, you know, found where I live, created a map with a highlighted like travel plan from where they are to me. And I can't delete them from my emails. And I given them, like, this is not appropriate behavior, you know, and I stopped commenting to them, and then they joined my virtual coven. And so now I've given this person a chance, because I don't want to take my ability to maybe help them if that's what they need. However, it is downright creepy. You're 100% right. And I'm giving this person one more shot, and then they're going to be out. But I try not to immediately throw that wall up at anyone. And that's why I say sometimes even myself, I have to work at what is a healthy behavior. Yeah, that's a stalker, but it's a female. And so for myself, I think if that were a male, I probably would have, nipped it in the bud a lot quicker. Because it's a female, I'm maybe giving it more leeway than I actually should, because that is stalker behavior. So anyway, get the police involved. Yeah. Hi. Yeah, and the person told me, I did ask why they were being that way, and they told me in the beginning they were autistic, and that is probably why I have been giving them so many tries, but I think it's more mentally unstable. And I believe we can all be mentally unstable at times, but yeah, the mapping out where I live, that was kind of the final straw when I blocked them from all of my social media and was like, you don't have the ability anymore to message me. So you'll get on board with hexing. No one harms my sisters. Marjorie is one of my priestesses in my coven. She is very protective, and I love that about her. All true witches are very protective of their people, of anyone they feel may be weaker than. I'm trying to think, may not have, I don't know if weaker than is the right, anyone who is under threat, the underdog, I feel we are naturally very, very protective. And I do believe people get mixed up around when is an appropriate time to hex and when is not. Now, in the 13 powers of the witch, which were originally given to Aradia from her mother, Diana, before we just started seeing them passed down through Wicca. So if you look at those times, the reason Diana gave Aradia the 13 powers of the witch to share with the witches was because there was so much political unrest at the time, and there were many people being oppressed, being silenced, and being killed. And I know even a lot of witches, with the times we're living through right now, your morals and your values are being challenged. It's like, do you really believe in not hexing or cursing? And I believe what it is for myself is that I do believe that no one needs to be hexing or cursing, because people just use it in a way it's not supposed to be used. Now, I believe Diana gave Aradia the ability to bless and to curse in the 13 powers. And what's interesting about that is the ability to bless and to curse is in the same sentence. And so if you look at the 13 powers, they actually read like they are 12, because there's 12 in a row. But if you look at the ability to bless and to curse in the same line, it gives you 13 powers, because those are actually two separate powers, even though they're a power that it's like one coin, but flip sides of the coin. And I believe there is a time where you may need to turn to those measures, and the reason she gave them to the people at that time through Aradia sharing her wisdom. Aradia bridges as a deity heaven and earth. And so she brings the wisdom of her mother, Diana, to the people on the planet. And I really, really love her story, and feel like as a deity, right now, she would be one that would be really great to turn to. And I love the collective shift in witchery that so many people are shifting to Hecate, because Hecate, just as Isis, seems to be one of the deities / goddesses that is actually a mirror or representation of the one divine mother. So in the oldest form of the craft, and this is another reason you can't be a witch and a Christian, is that witchery is goddess worship. It's goddess worship. I hate the word worship because I feel I don't worship anybody. I would call it goddess honor. But for people to understand, and historically it was known as goddess worship. So if we are looking at source or creator as that divine mother energy, when you look back historically, it really looks like some of the deities like Isis and Hecate. Even Isis is known as she of 10,000 names. She of 10,000 names is because humanity, I believe, kept trying to put a face on, thank you, the one divine mother, so that people could understand that energy of source or creator. So they were putting a, like, you know, this is our deity, Isis. She embodies the essence of the one divine mother. Hecate honors or represents another aspect of the one divine mother. Like, she's seen as a triple goddess, the mother, maiden, crone energy. And so that alone would say, because she's represented through the triple goddess form, she is all, she's whole. And, you know, speaking of that, there's something that us as witches, we kind of separate, because we separate the moon phases, right? We separate the waning, the waxing, you know, all of the different, the full, the new. And so we look at the triple moon aspect of, where do I have a triple moon? So the triple moon is like the full moon, the waxing, and the waning, right? And each of the realms represent, each of those phases represents a different aspect of womanhood. So it would be the mother, the maiden, and the crone. We like to separate those, but actually I believe that what those deities that are triple goddesses are actually bringing to us, the wisdom that they are bringing to us, is that of our wholeness. So when we are in a state of wholeness as women, we are embodying the mother, the maiden, and the crone, just like the one divine mother would be. Yes, Elisa, she put in the comments a shape that looks like that mother, maiden, crone energy archetype. So instead of separating that, yeah, my mods are fiercely protective. Thank you, Marjorie and Rebecca. I'm not sure if Kelly's on here. But I love my mods. They are very protective. They're actually priestesses, Marjorie and Rebecca, on in my coven. And we have a group that they moderate there as well. So the goddess has definitely blessed me with some very fiercely protective sisters to work with. And so thankful to have them here in the chat. Love you guys. So Aradia, working with Aradia right now would be so powerful, because she really lets us know when we need to, why we have the ability to hex, and when we should use that. And you know, there should be hopefully no times in your lifetime that you need to hex or curse, but I believe one of those times, and I don't even believe it would be to curse, but more to hex, is when your personal safety is in real threat. And the interesting thing is, I believe we don't know when we are in real threat. Like, a lot of people will reach out to me and say, I have a narcissistic husband and I need to know how to hex and curse him. No, you need to learn how to leave him. So we have control other than turning to baneful magic. So, you know, that's where I look at humanity really mixing things up and giving the craft a bad name. When we are teaching people to just randomly hex and curse, we're teaching them that an eye for an eye is okay. That's not personal responsibility. And personal responsibility in the craft is huge. Yes, I can. Is she still on here? Gingy, are you on here still? I need to see her name. There she is, to make her a moderator. Are you going to be leaving? How do I do this? I always get, Kelly has the ability to be a moderator. Gingy, you have the ability to be a moderator now. So my coven sisters. Marjorie has to work. Bye, Marjorie. Have a good day at work. Love you, sister. I think same thing with Rebecca today. She's working too. So I just gave you the ability to be a moderator, Gingy, if you don't mind doing that while you're on here. Thank you. Hi, Rowan. I am a solitary witch. I would say 95% of the year I'm a solitary witch. So I do have a virtual coven. Hi, Amy. Thank you for being here, sister. Blessed be. Oh, your comment just flew away. I was gonna say, let me add you, and then you were gone. So the reason I say I'm solitary for 95% of the year, I remain solitary all the time, meaning I do not practice anyone's craft other than my own. Why does it look so smoky in my room here on this camera? I hold women's retreats and twice a year. And part of the reason I do that is because although I'm a solitary witch, meaning I practice at home on my own, I also long for sisterhood. And so that's why I created my virtual coven and my witch school, because I think we need more solitary witches who are leading the way, because not everyone is drawn to the path of Wicca. And Wicca is the actual religion of witchcraft. And for myself, like, super grateful for Wicca, but I was raised in a religion, therefore I don't want anyone telling me how to practice my magic. And so in my witch school, I share, things that I have learned from multiple different perspectives, but I don't have like what, people would say in the Cabot tradition, I'm a level 3 or something like that, or degree. Not level, excuse me. So I don't have degrees of practice, because part of my teachings is that all witches should know their bloodline, and from their bloodline they should research the craft that is that calls to them most, depending on their lineage. Now, I teach very foundational steps that a lot of times are not what people want. People want, I find on TikTok, for me to do the work for them. They want me to do the spells, or they just want me to give them the spells without the prep work and without the knowledge of being an actual witch. And so what my work is in the world is guiding witches in that way of healing and leading them to follow their own heart and direction that they want to go with the craft. So I do teach spells, I teach healing, I teach rituals, I teach the foundations of weaving magic, connecting with the elements, and I've been initiated as a priestess in the Egyptian lineage of Isis. I am not not Egyptian in my blood, but that was brought to me by another priestess. So I'm actually an initiated priestess of Isis, and I am also an initiated priestess of the Rose. And the initiated priestess of the Rose, I believe it falls in line more with my heritage. I'm very Celtic. I am Irish, English, and Welsh, and Italian. So I also practice a lot of Strega. So knowing where your lineage comes from is really important, because usually there's a draw to that particular areas, not just their craft, but also their folklore. And folklore and the craft have They've definitely been intermingled and intertwined. That's why on my most recent post, I'm talking about how all, not all pagans are witches. And that's because before the church came and took over, the what would you call that? Because it was like it began, I believe, in Europe, the conversion of pagan Europe, and then it just spread across the planet, and to where Christianity became a it started as a way to control the people, and it is still used as a way to control the people. It is very historically recorded very well that the church is like it. It's odd how Christians believe that Adam and Eve are the beginning of time when we have historic proof that they are not the beginning of time. We also have historic proof that the Bible was not is not accurate. They burned the libraries of Alexandria because the libraries carried the actual original manuscripts and journals and documents and books that that Bible was based on. And they took the Bible, what is now seen as the Bible, and they went through and they manipulated it. They removed any essence of the divine feminine. They removed the mother goddess. And originally, I believe what was in that book, especially when you look at some of the chapters, like the Songs of Solomon, like that's a complete chapter of spells, you guys. And but they took out everything that was, and the thing is this book is prophets, basically people they considered prophets journals, right? And so these people weren't Christian when they wrote these journals, and so it makes sense that they manipulated it, and we have to look at it from a different angle because everyone would be what we considered pagan. Now, the reason people, like right now, there are people that practice paganism, right? That means they practice the old ways of God worshiping of the gods, plural, and deities, but they aren't witches. So everyone across the planet would be considered pagan to some sort because it's like pagan kind of, for myself, the way I describe pagan of old is they started using that word to differentiate the people who converted to Christianity and the people that stayed practicing the old ways. Now, the reason I say all witches are pagan is because witchcraft began in what we would call the pagan days. So all of the witches were pagan because polytheistic, yes, were pagans are, yes. And so witches were originally pagan. And so that's where I get like, I see this whole movement of Christian witches, and I'm like, this is Christianity appropriating yet again the pagan and the witch. They already appropriated all of the pagan's wisdom, right? Now they're going to move in and appropriate the witch's wisdom if we don't stop them. Now, this doesn't mean that I hate all Christians. Like, if you're going to be Christian, fine, it's your life. Like, I'm not here to tell you what to do. But please do not start adding things into your religion that take from mine. That is like such classic appropriation. Like the reason we have Christmas and Easter and other holidays and masses in the Catholic Church is because they stole them from pagans, because when they converted the people didn't want to let go of their holidays. So they made holidays. They were like, fine, if you people don't want to let go of these things, we will like bend, and we're gonna make a holiday called Christmas around when you pagans practice the Yule, winter solstice. And so what did we practice at winter solstice? They honored the rebirth of the sun, S-U-N, the sun in the sky, and the solar gods. And so what the Christians did was they took Jesus's birthday, Yeshua, who has been proven to have been somewhere born in the spring and the summer, and yet they said, we're going to make his birthday in the middle of winter. When everybody knows the travel to Bethlehem, all of the things that they tell in that story could not have happened in the winter. But they're going to celebrate his birthday on December 25th, a different day than the pagans actually celebrated Yule and winter solstice and the return of the sun. And that's why you're doing a Christmas tree. That's why you're lighting things up. That's why you bring the tree inside, because it was seen that in the winter, like it's the root, the origin of even corn dollies. It's kind of the same concept, is that the spirits of the grain, they brought in those last sheaves of wheat at Samhain and Mabon to create corn dollies out of them, because they believed there was a spirit of the wheat. And when it would completely die off, they needed to bring that spirit in so they could preserve the spirit of the wheat and then bring it and burn it in the at Ostara, so that the spirit of the wheat would bring abundance into the new year, keeping the spirit alive throughout the colder winter months. Now, we also see a similarity mirrored in that what we would call a Christmas tree, which was actually originally a Yule tree, and they were actually bringing in the giving the place a place for the nature spirits to come indoors during the coldest times of the month. And that's why they would decorate their trees, was giving offerings to those nature spirits. Now, you know how we all take our Christmas trees down after Christmas, our Yule trees after Christmas. Really, the Yule tree actually stayed, I believe, until Beltane, and then it was burned during the fires of Beltane. So, you know, and then you look at Imbolc, which is February 1st, and we also know that as Candlemas. And I really won't call it Candlemas, because Candlemas refers to a mass, and witches and pagans do not celebrate mass. Witches and pagans, hopefully I said that right, Christians, Catholics actually celebrate masses. And so they stole, because it was the Roman Catholic Church who was converting everyone, they stole what was originally Imbolc, the celebration of the return of light, again, the hope that winter would be over soon, the first inklings of spring at February 1st, and they made it into a mass and called it Candlemas, but it is Imbolc, right? Ostara was turned into Easter. There is a Germanic goddess they named Easter after, called Aostra. I always mix up the way I say her name. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right and not completely mutilating it. But Aostra is spelled E-O-S-T-R-E, and very similar to the word Easter, right? You ever wonder where they got the word Easter? From the goddess Aostra. That was celebrated on Ostara, which was spring equinox. So you guys, all of these holidays that are Christian that we celebrate, even us witches will call Yule time Christmas, because it's just been so programmed in us. I do it myself. You know, my daughter told me, I just don't like the word Yule. I just want to call it Christmas because I like the word. And it's like, I don't like the word. But I have nothing against Jesus. I actually believe Jesus was a witch. But what we need to look at is the way that they actually appropriated pagan life to create what is now Christian life. And we have people now telling the pagans and the witches that they are demonic and evil, when all that they actually honor and practice is rooted in our wisdom. It is twisted, but it is rooted in our wisdom. So it's like, you're going to take the ways that we practiced, twist it, make it yours, and then call us evil for practicing what we practice. It is the most ridiculous history that we have as a society. I do believe thousands of years from now, they're going to look back and be like, these people were completely fucked up. Like, that's why I say, when people are commenting on my thread, like telling me these horrid things in the comments that I have to go delete every day, they're all Christians that are quoting biblical scripture to me. And it's like, It's a book, you guys. It's a book that's not even in its original form. It's in its manipulated form. So it's ridiculous that you're gonna quote. It's like, okay, maybe I'll get my book over here, The Spiral Dance, and I'll start quoting that to Christians on their page. Why would I waste my time? They don't believe the way I do. But that's where I started all this, was talking about how self-righteous the people that are in the Christian church are. Not all of them, but a lot of them, that they can't even comprehend that you might not believe the same that they do. Like, when I look at that Bible, it makes me actually pissed, because I'm like, I want what was originally in that Bible. I want what was in those libraries of Alexandria that they never actually found, who burned the libraries of Alexandria. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of books in that library. And at that time, books were not like they are today, where we just have tons of them. So, you know, not everyone actually, you know, the stalker I was telling you about, I just seen come up on my notifications. She's emailing me right now saying she wished she could come on my live, but gosh. You know, I love doing what I do. I love coming on the live, but some of these things are just so, it's like, dang. You know, I believe Jesus was a witch myself. Yeah, basically a witch. Jesus was a witch. You know what I think? A lot of what was attributed to Jesus was not actually Jesus. And again, I've been initiated into all these lineages. The priestess of the rose includes being initiated into, maybe I should let those burn. Being initiated, why won't you go out? Initiated as a priestess of Magdalene, and I really honestly believe that a lot of what was attributed to Jesus, it was actually Magdalene. So I believe the only way it was carried through history and she wasn't killed herself was because it kind of was like, well, a man can do this and not be killed, but if a woman is doing it, she's a witch. But actually, in the location that they lived, I don't believe there was a name that translates into witch, if that makes sense. In Egypt, even, they didn't have a word for witch. It would be priestess, really. You know, in Siberia, that's where we get the word shaman. So, and they desecrated her story. You are 100% accurate. Like, but we have what I would consider the daughters of Magdalene that actually have carried the wisdom of Magdalene through the shadows, through the ages, where today her message is being brought forward. And it was in the 70s, I believe, that they actually found some of her scrolls that were not burned. So during that burning of all the libraries and all of the actual where everything came from, there were scrolls that were saved. You guys can actually find what was on those scrolls. Where is that book? I can't find it. It's a very thin. It's called The Gospel of Mary Magdalene. What was on those scrolls is in this book. There are many books like this that actually they're always giving me these notifications. I'm so worried now because I got like kicked off one week. Every single post I put up goes under review. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Anyway, what was on those scrolls that they found in the 70s is it proved that what they've been saying all along about Mary, that the daughters of Magdalene carried through the shadows, was actually true, that she was not a whore. She was actually, I believe, it doesn't prove in this that she went to the temples of Isis, but it does prove that she was either a disciple of Christ, a right hand witch of Christ, something. But I do believe, like, you notice in the biblical teachings, like, there's this gap of time between when Christ was 13 and 33. Where did he go? Where he went was the same place, I believe, Magdalene went, the same place that Mother Mary went, Grandmother Anna. And the reason why they considered Mother Mary a virgin was not because she didn't have sex with anyone, it was immaculate conception. It was that she was afforded the ability to not have to be sold because her family was so rich. All of the other women had to be sold, and that's where they would take a wife, or a husband would take a wife, and marriage is rooted in, was you would be bought for 10 cows or, something like this. And they would give the money to your parents, right? So Mary didn't have to have that because her family was wealthy. And so I believe all of them were afforded the ability to go to the temples of Isis. And this is where they learned to heal the sick and raise the dead. I mean, it's so, like, you put the pieces of the puzzle together when you start going down these rabbit holes. I mean, we have Google at our fingertips. Of course, not everything you're reading on Google is true. So you do have to go down huge rabbit holes, read books, but you can find this information. In Egypt, there actually was no word for witch. However, Egypt is the oldest documented history of spell work, and so that's why in my practice I truly honor Isis, and a lot of people call her she of 10,000 names or she of 10,000 spells, because she had what was the original spells. Even though there wasn't a word there for witch, she would be called priestess. The word in Europe was witch, right? The word in Siberia was shaman. So there were different words to describe this woman who carried oracular gifts. And witch, I believe, was more of that European word. Even in Italy, it was called strega. What is it in Polish? My friend that is Polish, she calls herself, is it Wieczma? Wieczma? Something like this is their word. So it's like the witch, really, how we differentiate the witch from pagans, because a lot of what they practice is the same, is the spell work is different than folklore. So although a lot of the pagan folklore I practice, like I have a corn dolly, a Bridget up here, Bridget, again, the perfect example of something that the church actually appropriated. They took Bridget the goddess and made one of their nuns, saints, of Bridget, who carries the same attributes as the deity Bridget. So I do believe there is a difference between Saint Bridget and actual deity or goddess Bridget. And now I completely forgot where I was going with that, but the word witch. So it would have been used more in places like Wales, France, London, Scotland, Ireland. There is a girl in my coven who, I do believe the word witch, and I could be wrong, was in areas also like Sweden and different places, but the word witch ended up being like used across the board. It got confused because they were of the finger pointing during the burning times, that anyone that was using their feminine gifts was considered to be a witch. Amy, there you are again. I'm gonna make you a moderator. I can't make you a moderator because your account is on private, I think. But Gingy got it. Thank you, Gingy. Aaron, I don't know if you want me to call you Gingy or Aaron when we're on here. Anyway, if you want to know what was in those books, like get the Gospel of Magdalene. There's many different versions of it, but it basically all says the same thing. And that was what was on those scrolls they found in the 70s that basically made the church have to take back what they had basically been teaching for years. Even that alone should be enough to like completely cancel the Christian church. Like, it is mind-boggling to me that the Christian church has not been canceled for all of the stuff that has been proven to be inaccurate. How are they still going? You know, I don't believe in canceling people, but if we were going to cancel a religion, that would be the one for sure. And I have friends that are Christian who would probably be like really upset at me if they listened to my live. You know, I wonder sometimes if they listened to my live, would they still be considering me a friend? Maybe. I do have two that I think would. But what differentiates the witch from the pagan? I'm gonna shut my blinds here, you guys. The sun beats in my room here. It's really bad this time of day. During this time of year. I think that's why it looks like so smoky in here. I need to get a ring light. Stella was telling me the ring light, I need a ring light around my camera. Anyway, the differentiation. I really believe the differentiation between just a witch and a pagan is that witches had oracular gifts. They did spell work. So they had this gift of being able to what some people would call manifestation or spell work, so we could make things happen. There were abilities that were different than your everyday healer or midwife. They had healing abilities that were slightly more what I would describe as magical, and they had these oracular gifts, meaning they could prophesy. They could predict what was going to happen in the future, and they could channel wisdom. So it was like that psychic divination and ability to weave nothing into something is what differentiated them from pagans. But they practiced all of the things the pagans did. They honored the wheel of the year because that's how you lived life. So you like the smoky aesthetic? It might also be because I put out my candles. But it's looked smoky since I got on here, and I'm like, what is that actually? Because I got a new phone, and I'm like, is there a filter on here I don't know about? Like, I cleaned the camera and it still looks smoky in here. I'm not sure why. See what time it is. How long have I been on here? If you guys have not liked my live, like my live, give me a bunch of hearts, share with your friends. You think it's the sunlight reflecting? That might be what it is, because I can't close my window all the way because I have like crystals and all kinds of stuff on my window. I haven't shown you guys in a while. Well, that's my window right there. That's where my computer is, but I don't know if you can see this, but I changed. Can you see my pentacles? So I used to have a spiral out there, and now it is a pentacle. And then over there is my fairy garden that's all dead because it's winter and it's cold. But that's where the light is coming in from. This is my seasonal altar right here. And that's my mirror. I do mirror work in. And right over here, this is my main altar. I don't show this a lot. This is where I do a lot of my work, actually. So I don't show this altar a lot because it's where I'm doing my, like, a lot of my actual spell work is done here. But also I do a lot of spell work at my seasonal altar because I have that nice big table-like space, where this one is used for more meditation and my daily, like, I daily sit here. You will find me every morning when I say eat, breathe, and live the craft. Every morning I come in here and I breathe and clear my energy. And then I have my cards here, and I will pull cards for the day. And you can see I have different spells here that I've done. This is a spell jar. I have offerings for different deities. These are actual juniper berries here. And this side of the altar right now is dedicated to Hecate. Let me stand up. I don't know if you guys can see that. I have an amethyst, a large amethyst on either side. Bastet is in the middle. I have the deity Ma'at down at the bottom. She's down on one knee holding her, actually she's not Ma'at, that's Isis. Ma'at only holds one wing out. And this is Isis over here on the left. Isis is mother of Bastet. And she has ostrich feathers because when you are initiated a priestess of Isis, you are gifted a ostrich feather fan. Anyway, a lot of my reading and study is done there. If we come over here, this is my inner child altar right here. So my inner child altar represents my journey of healing my inner child, which actually has a lot to do with yoga. Yoga really was my deep dive into healing my inner child. And so this part of my altar is dedicated to my journey with yoga and green Tara. And if you've never done the mantra for green Tara, it is so beautiful. Such a great way to work with that part of you that needs to connect to the earth to heal your inner child. And it's Om Tare Tutare Tare Soha. And then the altar next to it, another one rooted in yogic wisdom, this part of it is Kuan Yin. And usually I have a picture of myself up here, but it's right next to my bed right now, the one I usually have in here, because I just started working with some inner child stuff again last night. So Kuan Yin, this is her image here, a statue of her I got in Hawaii, and then this little heart here with all the rose quartz. I'm safe to be my true and authentic self. This says, what a great day to be around. What's it say? What a great day to be proud of all my progress. That's what it says. And then all this rose quartz for love. Now, the reason why I have all of this right here, the dolls, is because to me, haunted dolls represents my childhood, but also a connection to my great grandma, who I inherited my craft from. So she actually gave me a haunted doll that I believe was haunting me, and when I was younger, wasn't who I am now. I actually threw her away in the middle of the night because she was torturing me. And so I feel bad about that now because I believe I shouldn't have done that. So now I collect haunted dolls. This particular Kuan Yin's is pointing down to this little girl. The spirit in this doll, this little girl doll, was, her name is Amber Lee. And she was actually a spirit of a girl that was kidnapped and sexually abused and ended up departing. And that's why She does not want to depart from the earth yet. She feels like she has left too soon. And I put her right under Kuan Yin's altar because I work with similar wounding within myself from stuff that happened to me. But I also believe that I'm working with this particular spirit to have her completely go to the other side and not be attached to the doll. And this is Bonnie. Bonnie is a doll that came from Wales and was actually the spirit of a witch that lived in Wales. And you all know I have Welsh in my bloodline. This is Ursa. Ursa is a Nordic healer or medicine woman. They didn't refer to her as a witch. She worked with the women in the community specifically. And she has inhabited this doll for a very long time, and now I have her. So I also have my chalices here because I believe when your inner child is healed, the chalice or the oracle of your womb space becomes your greatest tool as a woman and as a witch. So this entire altar right here is dedicated to my inner child journey. I really love this. The author's name is Tara Ellis. I got it on Etsy, and it's up there because it represents my journey into the underworld that yoga brought me on. And I didn't start doing daily yoga realizing that it was going to take me on this journey to heal my inner child, but this visual really represented what happened when I went on that journey with yoga. I felt like I was plunged into the depths of the ocean, and there was this light illuminating everything that happened to me as a child. So I really, really love this image. Imagery is very important to me, as well as sound. They really open my ability as a channel. And so that's why my altars are very aesthetically put together, very different than a lot of witches you see. And that's the thing about the craft, right? Is that we all get to witch the way that we want. And because of my Libra rising, I believe I love like aesthetic beauty. The way I dress is very important. The way my altars are set are very important. And also the music that is around me. You know, right now the music that is on, it's all binaural beats. And the reason why I play that when I'm on my live is because it helps open my channel. So then I'm giving you channeled wisdom that is for the highest and best good of all. I really highly suggest binaural beats. They're amazing. And you can get them for different things. You can have binaural beats for sleep, but I first started using them, I want to say it was back around 2011. I was working with a psychic coach on psychic development, and he got me using binaural beats to open my channel, which actually really, really helped. And it made it so I could trust myself, if that makes sense, because the music just, it opens up a different part of me. You know, not that I'm not wise and smart, but I think when we open that channel, a different type of wisdom comes in that allows us to access lifetimes of soul wisdom, as well as being able to channel different deities and their energies and such. So that was a little tour of my little witchy room here. And then I don't know if I showed you that. That's my bookcase there. I have a million more books than that, but that's the books I use the most. And that's a little altar on that shelf devoted to Mary Magdalene and Anya. Kind of has become both Mary Magdalene and Anya. It's like this side has the Mary Magdalene stuff, but I also have a Mary Magdalene image over here. But Anya's in the middle and her mushrooms are in the middle. So Mary Magdalene and Anya, that's their area there. And then in my windowsill, you can see I have like some ancestral stuff there. I have my wand, and I have pictures of the grandmothers that my bloodline for my witchery comes from. And then there's my computer. And then over here is, I gotta have a cat tree in here because my cats will never leave me alone. Kitty's in there sleeping with one leg out. And that's where I am coming to you from. Every Sunday is my witchy room. I always longed for this room, and my kids watched me transform, because I basically, when my oldest was 8 and my youngest was 2, not even 2, 1, I divorced my husband and left the Mormon church and started my witch journey. So my kids, my oldest, kind of, she was part of the like in the church, out of the church, in the church, out of the church. But the younger two, they really have no experience being in the Mormon church at all. Anyway, they kind of watched me develop this part of myself. And I always talk about, there was one Samhain night, I always remember them standing at the sliding glass room window door in my bedroom, watching me in the backyard. And I had made this big salt pentacle in my backyard. And I was like, doing my witch work out there. But, they grew up with their mother as a witch, especially my younger two that were 1 and 3. That's all they know of me. They all 3 children have a lot of gifts like I do. They grew up with amethysts in their window to protect them from spirits and to help them with dreams and their empathic abilities. And, I think they got the question a lot, like, is your mom a witch? Because I was kind of in the broom closet, even though I wasn't in the broom closet, if that makes sense. People put a label on me of mystic. That's for a while. My handle was Mystic Harmony because I had a little boutique called Mystic Harmony, and I named it Mystic Harmony because people referred to me as Mystic Harmony, and it felt safe because I live in this town where it's highly Christian. So I pretty much keep to myself. I only have one friend here, really. And she's who I host retreats with. She has a business called Herbal Goddess Healing, and I think she's more highly accepted, even though she's a witch, but she's the herbal goddess, right? That's a little different to people than the witch. And so I just mostly am a house witch. So most of my work that I do is solitary in my home. I live really close to Sedona, and so there have been times during my journey that I have been in Sedona a lot. And I came across teachers in Sedona in an interesting way. In 2019, at the end of 2019, I closed my boutique because of health issues. And when I closed the boutique, I had gone to a retreat. And at that retreat, I was inspired to start holding my own retreats. So from there, I started going to retreats and co-hosting retreats and being an assistant at retreats to learn all that I could, so I could do my own. And while I was in Salem, right after I closed, I had gone to Salem. And in Salem, I met this old woman. She was 80, I believe, and she did crystal scrying. And she did this reading for me. And I really loved her. Of all the places I went, like, this was kind of an out-of-the-way place. And, she just wasn't your typical, she was just an old woman. And when she found out I lived in Arizona, she was like, oh, I have a friend in Sedona. And I knew him in Hawaii. They had both lived in Hawaii together. And she said, you should contact him, and gave me his info. So when I came home, I contacted him, which is completely unlike me because I usually don't trust men, but I trusted Linda. And he offered weekly meditations in his home. And so all of 2020, I spent driving weekly to Sedona to meditate with this old 83-year-old man and in his living room. And that year was one of the most powerful years of my life. You know, when everything shut down and locked down, um, I didn't go to work for those like 2 months. I would not only go to Steve's in Sedona, but I would go out to the creeks, and no one was allowed outside. So I was at these powerful vortex areas by myself, and I would sit there and meditate, and I would walk, and it really, that period of time propelled me in out of the broom closet in a whole new light. You know, before that, my Instagram, all of my socials were Mystic Harmony, because that was the safe way to label myself, right? And so I slowly started evolving and showing up as the witch that I am, out of more fully like visible as a witch, right? A lot of people give me crap for wearing the hat, that it's all stereotypical witch. To me, the hat is actually very sacred. And you know, the hat goes back further. I talk about the Brewsters, about the alewives, whatever you want to call them, that would brew beer on the corners when during the conversion of pagan Europe. But there's also, you know, in historic wisdom, there are cave drawings of women in a circle, and I believe they call that cave drawing dancing witches, I think. It speaks about it in the book, The ABCs of Witchcraft by Doreen, is it Valentine? Or Valenti, or I don't remember. I don't have the book in here to tell you. It's in my, in a closet. But in that book, she talks about this image of these women that appear to be dancing in a circle, and they are wearing pointed hats. So, you know, a lot of people like to attribute the witch's hat to the chronicle hat, to Jewish hats, to the alewives, which I do believe there's a connection in the alewives or the Brewsters, but I do believe there were witches that were part of society that wore a pointed hat as a representation of the cone of power. So for me, this hat isn't about what Hollywood is doing to the witch, because honestly, I don't give a fuck what Hollywood puts out there. Some of it makes me mad and some of it makes me happy, because, you know, a lot of these shows have witches backing them. Showing them what is accurate. Like The Craft, I actually believe, even though there's like a dark twist to that, I don't even know if I want to call it a dark twist, but like a shadowy twist to it, a lot of what they're putting in The Craft is accurate. A lot of what is in Practical Magic is accurate. So there are witch shows out there that are accurate. Recently, someone showed me a show on, was it on Netflix, that I believe was accurate. Was it Discovery of Witches, where she's weaving magic, and someone sent me a little thing of it, and my husband and I watched it, and I was like, wow, that is like completely what I see. And so I applaud Hollywood a lot of times, and then other times I'm like, fuck Hollywood, because like the reason why we see a witch with a green face is because the Wizard of Oz. Now, you know, I guess the reason why we see the witch with the hat, the broom, and the green face is the Wizard of Oz. Now, although they got the broom right and they got the hat right, the green face is a complete mockery of the burning times. The reason we see witches with a green face, the reason they used a green face was because if they made it out alive, from being tortured and imprisoned for like 6 months to a year, they came out and their faces were green from being bruised, and their noses were broken, and that is why we see the witch with this crooked nose. So I, in my lifetime, have never painted my face green during Halloween. I have never put a fake crooked nose on to identify myself as a witch, because I believe that is the sad history of humanity, and that is a negative downside of what Hollywood can do to a historical figure like the witch. So really, there are a lot of women that are identify as witches that do paint their face green at Halloween, and I'm like, dude, don't do that. please don't do that. It is the sad history of the women that came before us, not even the witches. I mean, they did do that to the witches, but it was the women that were imprisoned. Like, can you think of that? That's the one thing I can say, like, struck me, because a lot of the like museum and stuff they have in Salem is very kind of Disneyland. Like, a lot of it isn't actual historic, but there is this one church, and we're going to take the women there who come to our Salem retreat, and they do a reenactment on the upper floor of the church of the witch trials, which was kind of a little bit boring to me. But then when they took you downstairs to the basement of the church, where they had recreated where they kept the actual women during the trials. And I guess where they actually kept them is below, I believe it's below a library or a town building, someone told me there. It might have been the old woman Linda, because she said they try to steer people away from the actual locations. And so you can't get to where the actual prisons were, but they recreated them in the bottom of that church. And basically what it looked like was if they took in a like cave wall and they carved out the shape of a coffin standing up, so just like bigger, a little bit bigger than me, and enough so that I can step back into it, and then they put bars in front of it. So these women were held captive for up to a year or more in these, what was basically a standing up coffin. And these were, there weren't any historical witches that were accused during that time. The only one that possibly may have been a witch was Tituba. The rest of them were Christian women. But it's still sad. I don't care what they believed. It's the history of women, right? But they had to stand. If you sat, you would basically have to go from standing to like a squatting position, because it wouldn't even have been big enough and for you to like sit crisscross applesauce. Your knees would be out too far unless you were really, really flexible. And they lived in these standing up cells that were only as big as a coffin for over a year. That's why a lot of them died from lack of nutrition, lack of sunlight, from sickness and disease, from bacteria. Like, they would have to go to the bathroom in these cells. They a lot of times did not even have like a bucket or something for them to go to the bathroom in. It is disgusting. When you start looking at the witch trials, if you really deep dive like I have done, it can take you over. I've had to step back from it because it made me so, at times I was so overwhelmed with grief, and other times I was so overwhelmed with anger and hatred that I had to like say, okay, I've absorbed enough of this. I understand enough of this to understand our history, the history of religion, the history of how we came to where we are. And I had to take a step back because it was too overwhelming, to where now I really am careful when I start to indulge in those type of books, because there's one book, I can't remember what it's called. Do you remember, is Sarah still on here? Sarah was reading it and stopped reading it. That has a pretty good that's the only book I've seen that has kind of a lot of what happened really in one place. But it's really hard to read. I know Sarah had to stop reading it. And so I try to steer people to a little milder book, because that book's a lot. But I can tell you what I researched was even more than what was in that book. And it looks like Sarah's gonna go get the name, but a lot of people say it's hard to read because the grammar isn't great in it. But even if you don't, if you really want to understand history start to finish on the craft, and hear where all these concepts come from about drinking blood and all this stuff, it has nothing to do with witchcraft. It's all the Christians. And it even goes into how they killed each other. So it's really, really, it's sick and it's sad. And I believe actually witchcraft predates Freemasonry, even though a lot of people claim a lot of what we study in the craft is connected to Freemasonry because of the book, like the Golden Dawn and that whole movement, like how the craft survived, I guess, you know. Was it Witches, the History of Persecution? That probably is what it is, Sarah. So if you guys want to check out that book, yeah. So do you guys have any other questions for me? I'm just kind of like rambling about, I get on these tangents and just go. Amy's saying, yeah, that is the name of the book. That's what, yeah, I thought the name was longer than that, but I think that is what it is. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, Amber. Thank you guys for like commenting in the chat, for, you know, creating a beautiful little community in the chat. Thank you, Jean. And thank you, JJ. Thank you, Dory. Thank you guys for the gifts. Thank you for staying here and listening. Mystics, I'm not sure how to say that. Mystic Seed 5, thank you for your gifts. Can you repeat the artist name of the girl plunged into the water? There's the image. I got it on Etsy. Tara Ellis is her name. She has a lot of beautiful artwork, if I remember right. Thank you. You know, they say your eyes never change from lifetime to lifetime. So people are drawn to your eyes because they are a window to the soul, but they also speak to the many lifetimes that you have lived. I start my lives at 10 on Sunday mornings. I have an entire library, but I need more books. Yeah. When we moved, you guys, I had a closet full of books. My husband took pictures of me because I gave like more than half of them away. I sat in the hallway and had books piled above my head. I don't even know how I had so many books crammed in that closet. So now I have 2 cabinets and this bookshelf. Everything else I gave away. Because I all of a sudden realized like I didn't need that energetic debris. Taryn Ellis, you found her. Beautiful. I love to support the artists that I love. Nigel Cawthorn, is that the name of the author of the book? I left the nursing world. Sometimes the comments get moving and I can't read. Thank you, Sarah and Amy, for moderating. It's been so great to have you guys here helping. Or I think just Aaron was moderating, because I think because your account's private, I can't have you moderating, Amy, but I did friend request you. So you guys, I have a retreat coming up in Salem. And I don't know if you guys follow the witch, Stella. She's a friend of mine. She is always wearing like beige, off-white. She wears a witch hat. Thank you, Dorlyn. We are hosting a retreat together this August, so there's only a little bit of time left to sign up. This is the year of reclaiming who you are. And we're gonna do that in Salem. So if you want to join us there, we have private payment plans, but that makes it so the retreat has to be paid in full by the time of the retreat, which is August 1st. But now I got approved to have Affirm on my account. So we have, if you can qualify for Affirm, it gives you longer payment plan options, and depending on your credit, it gives you it with 0% interest. So go check out the link in my bio and go look at Salem Coven Retreat. And it doesn't give you the option to click Affirm until you're in the payment portion. So go all the way through the whole process until you get to where you choose payment to be able to work out a payment plan with Affirm if you would like to join us using that, so you could like maybe make payments over a year or something. So I'm really excited to have that on there, because I know there's been a lot of people who've told me they want to go, but they would need like their payment plan stretched out. And the issue is that Salem's an expensive place to visit. We have rented out the entire coach house, which is a historic home that is now used as an Airbnb. It's been completely remodeled. It's beautiful and gorgeous. I tried to work with several caterers in Salem. None could work with me. They didn't have the time, or no one would respond. And so I'm actually flying our vegan chef from California out to Salem. And I'm also bringing my photographer out with us from Arizona, and we're bringing Stella out from Australia and myself out from Arizona. So this is a more pricey retreat, but it is worth every penny. You're going to get a witch hat, a custom witch cloak, and a witch amulet. All of that stuff alone, if you were to buy it separately, is $1,000 on its own. So our Coven retreat is about reclaiming your power as a witch, still remaining a solitary witch, but that reclamation of self and power to be able to move forward in the world in this really empowered way rather than a disempowered way. Because right now, with everything that's going on, especially in the US, people are feeling really disempowered. They're dropping into this place of victimhood. Dory, go check out the payment plan on Affirm. It really makes it a lot more doable for people. And Stella is actually in the process of designing a cloak. So even though we're all going to remain solitary for the time we are at this retreat, we are Coven. And so she's creating this cloak for all of the witches that come that has a pentacle on the back. And then we have our assistant, Nikki, who's making this pentacle amulet. Her husband is actually works with jewelry and crystal and sells it in Salem. And we're going to have this amulet that only those who go to the retreat get. And so we're really like mimicking the old ways of the craft, but bringing it into the modern day. So the true power of the old ways of the craft without a lot of the codependent like dogma that can come along with it. And you're getting Stella and I for 5 days. Every night we hold a ceremony. One of our ceremonies, you guys, Stella and I have been on Zoom every night recently, working on the power of this ceremony, because we were inspired by the scene on the movie The Craft where they're out at the beach. And we decided we wanted to bring our full moon ritual to the beach in Salem. And so we're going to be holding our ceremony on the beach, and we're going to be teaching all of the witches to cast a circle, and together we will cast this circle. I don't want to give you too much information because we want the awe and the excitement and the honor of being a part of that to be experienced in the moment. But that gives you enough to, like, that's our main ceremony will be that ceremony. But we're also like visiting all of these historic sites, and we are gonna take you to that location where it showed you the actual prisons that I was talking about earlier, where they kept the women. And because I really want to take you, like, there's a lot of places we could go in Salem, but that was the one place when I seen that cell, it just hit me, that the green face, that's something that no witch should ever be doing. And that's why we're going to Salem, not because the witches actually lived in Salem. The witches actually reclaimed uh, their power, I want to say, because what went from a place that people accused you of being a witch and they hung them for it, but they actually came in and took over that area. So when you really think about what happened there, it went from the disempowerment of women in general to the empowerment of the witch. Like, everyone that's going there is celebrating the witch, even if a lot of what gets celebrated there is stereotypical. Even if they think they killed all the witches there, which they didn't kill witches, they just killed Christian people. But it is a place of reclamation, and Stella and I both felt like this power of reclamation there, but also this almost like time looping energetic feeling of the past being so heavy there. And so our goal with this Coven Salem retreat is to be able to heal that of the past that we carry in our bloodline, right? And we carry in our bodies because we came in with this in our bloodline, but it's that witch wound that we're healing because of that, keeping that memory alive of what happened there. We need to heal that within ourselves and also reclaim that part of ourselves that is the witch, like what happened in Salem. Because what happened in Salem, like, they were not killing witches, they were killing women and some men and some dogs. So the fact that it went from a completely Christian town who hung 20 people, 19 people, 19 women, 3 men, I forget the exact number, and 1 to 2 dogs. The dogs, I feel so bad for the dogs for it. The fact that it went from that history to a place that actually empowers and celebrates the witch, there is this huge ability, the energy there really supports that healing of the witch wound and the actual reclamation of your power. And the women we met with, Stella and I went there in November together, and we just asked anybody who wanted to come to Salem and do a ceremony with us. So it wasn't even for a retreat. It was just like, hey, come do a ceremony with us. And so some people traveled out to Salem and we did a ceremony, and every single woman that participated in that ceremony had some massive awakening and reclamation of self. And so when Stella and I left, we were even integrating it, because the first time I went to Salem, I actually felt heavy. Like, it wasn't what you thought it would be. It was like this massive realization of what our history actually was, like seeing it in person. Where when I went back with Stella, because we were going to do a ritual, it was like we went into that energy of the time looping witch wound, that we went there, we felt that, and then we did this ceremony of reclamation, and we left completely up-leveled. And we decided, Stella's never held a retreat, and she's like, wouldn't it be cool if we did this in Salem as a retreat? And so we realized that we had to do it, and we had to do it this year, which didn't give people a lot of time to save or to pay payments. But really, when Spirit moves us to do something, or at least for myself, I know that now is the time. And I believe it's because of it, all that's changed this last year. We need support in many ways. So we're offering that through this retreat we're going to be holding, but also, do whatever you need to do. Because not all of you are going to be able to go to a retreat, right? Recently I put an example of my solitary practice on my page. You see me with a circle of candles I have out there, my cauldron. Like, you can do ritual and ceremony your in your own backyard. You guys don't feel like you have to wait to find the perfect coven. You don't have to wait to go to a retreat. You need to eat, breathe, and sleep the craft if you are a witch to be able to show up during these times as that empowered vessel that carries this wisdom from living all these lifetimes as a witch. So I'm really excited about that retreat. Our practical magic retreat that we hold in August, or I hold in August, is with my friend Margot, is actually already sold out. So the next practical magic retreat won't happen until 2026. So the last retreat that you have an opportunity to be a part of for this year is the one we're holding on August 1st, which is right after, or August 7th, which is right after Lunasaw. But we are going to be at this retreat on Lionsgate, which is such a powerful time. We already talked about Egypt and the connection to the craft in Egypt at the beginning of this live. And so to be able to be there to reclaim power during the Lionsgate, I feel like that's when the planet Sirius, which is the spiritual sun of our sun energetically. So that planet that nourishes our sun with spiritual wisdom is actually aligned perfectly during our retreat to where it's feeding the sun, and the sun actually feeds us, right? It gives us nutrients. And so we have this direct pathway of spiritual and mystical wisdom that is aligning perfectly astrologically during that retreat. So the date we have planned this retreat on has so much potential. It's a full moon in Aquarius, releasing Aquarius shadow, and also standing in that Leo and Sun light. So our ability as witches, when we come online, it makes us feel like there's so many other witches out there and we're not alone. And that's why I'm so thankful for TikTok and social media platforms and the community that I've created through my virtual coven and stuff, because it makes us feel not alone as witches. But if you're like me and you're living in a town where it's not highly acceptable to be a witch, like in California, I know most places in California, like being a witch is not a big deal. Where I live, I don't really have many friends here who, I have a lot of acquaintances, and I've been a hairdresser for 30 years, so I do know a lot of people from doing hair, but also people keep their distance from me because they're afraid of me. So I'm really thankful for TikTok, for social media, for making the world feel a little smaller. And the thing is I do believe our wisdom as solitary witches is needed in the world so much right now, because we understand personal responsibility, we understand authenticity, and I also believe the essence of the divine mother, of the goddess, because the craft is goddess worship at its core. Like the goddess is returning, her wisdom is coming back onto the planet. So anyway, I'm getting all hoarse. It is time for me to end this live and say goodbye. I've been on here a very, very long time. I am always live Sunday mornings for 2 hours or more. Me and Stella do the same. I know, Stella and I say we are two halves of one soul. She has long hair, but her hair is blonde, and she wears all white. I wear all black. It's very, very interesting. And we kind of found each other through social media, like being exact opposites, but so similar. It's very interesting dynamic. So thank you guys for being on the live. Thank you, Sarah, for finding that book. Thank you for Erin stepping in and being the moderator because Rebecca and Marjorie had to leave. Not sure if Kelly's still on here, but thank you, Erin. Thank you, Amy. Thank you to all my Coven sisters for being here. Go check out the link in my bio if you're interested in coming to the retreat. Again, you have to go all the way to the payment plan and connect to Affirm to be able to see what the payment plan options are for you. So don't just click out because you don't see a payment plan. You actually have to like put your name in, pretend you're gonna buy, and then click pay with Affirm, and it'll give you the actual options for payment plans. So I'm really excited to be offering that now. And it's all across my website. So if you want to use it to buy stuff in the apothecary, you can, and all of the things, even my online courses, you can use it for now. But I love you guys. I hope you have a beautiful Sunday. Thank you for being here. My moderator accidentally just shut off comments. So I guess that means it's time to go. I love you all. Blessed Sunday.